You are listening to the WillPower Podcast. Welcome to the show. I am Will Holdren, and I talk with some of the most influential CEOs, entrepreneurial leaders, and thought leaders to try and reveal the secrets that has led to their success. I believe that with the right knowledge and mindset, you can do anything you set your mind to. So if you want to learn how to change your life for the better, if you want to learn how millionaires actually became wealthy, or if you want to develop and start your own business from the ground up with the right knowledge to help you, then you are in the right place because this is the WillPower Podcast.
Nowhere that we go is a one-way street. Nothing that we love is a one-day key. And if we gon' do it, we gon' do this now. And if we say we gon' hold this down.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Will Holdren. I am the host of the WillPower Podcast. There you have an incredible God-fearing entrepreneur, and her name is Dr. Darnyelle Harmon. And Dr. Darnyelle is she's an award-winning business growth strategist. Like I mentioned, she's also faith-centered, which is huge. She's a multi-millionaire business mentor. And on top of that, she's an Inc. 5000 CEO of her own company called Incredible One Enterprises. And she has also helped over 45 clients become $1 million CEOs, which is quite the accomplishment. So with that being said, Dr. Darnyelle, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Will. I'm so excited to be here.
My pleasure. That's quite the resume you have. So I'm super excited to jump into your story and kind of find out how you got to where you are today. So beginning, I want to ask you a question I pretty much ask all of my podcast guests, which is, first of all, what makes you want to take time out of your busy schedule to hop on podcasts like these to go out there and share your story?
Two reasons really distinctly. Number one, I think that when you've been blessed, you pass it on, right? There are a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners out there who have lost hope, that have been, experiencing the highs and lows and ebbs and flows of entrepreneurship, and they feel like they're by themselves. And so I want to create an environment where people know that they're not alone and that the things that they've been through are not isolated to them, because entrepreneurship makes you feel like no one else is going through it. And then the second, this is my purpose. This is what God designed me to do. And I would not be fulfilling the mandate on my life if I kept everything that I've learned and every skill that I've attained over the years to myself. It would just be plain selfish. And so instead, I get out, I talk to great people like you. We get to have an amazing conversation. I meet people who didn't know who I was before, that get access to some information that literally will change their life, and the world becomes a better place.
I love that. I love that. And I always say as well, once you follow God's purpose for you or what God wants you to do, that's when you're really going to find that bliss, that joy in your life. And it really seems to me like that's what you're doing. You're obviously following God's passion and helping out a lot of people at the same exact time. So it's really cool to see. So jumping into your story, how did you originally get started in entrepreneurship, and what was that startup journey like?
Yeah, December the 17th, 2004, I woke up.
Wow.
It was my last day of working for the year, and I just didn't feel right. I call it my Keith Sweat moment, in case any of your listeners are familiar with Keith Sweat. He's an R&B singer, and he's got this song called Something Just Ain't Right. And so I literally just didn't feel right in my spirit. And so like I do most mornings, I, started prayer and grabbed my journal. And I just felt in my spirit that it was my last day at work. Like I didn't know what I was going to do, but I had outgrown sitting behind someone else's desk. And so what started as a knot in the pit of my stomach ended up becoming a lump in my throat. And by the time I got to the office, it was very clear that I was going to be resigning. And I woke up that morning without a plan. I did not know what I was going to do, but I trust God. And I feel like, like Romans 8:31 says, if God be for you, who can be against you? And so I'm like, I can't lose if I'm doing what I heard him say. Right. And so I literally walked into my boss's office. I handed in a makeshift letter of resignation and I left.
Wow.
And while I was figuring out what I was supposed to do at that particular point in time, I had a Mary Kay Cosmetics part-time business. And so I decided I would just do my Mary Kay business full time. And 2 pink Cadillacs later, I felt the urge again. This time I call it my Britney Spears moment. Oops, I did it again. I traded one desk for another. I know God called me to be out in the marketplace, to operate at a higher level, to do work that would impact the lives of other people. And I was literally hiding behind someone else's brand. And so in 2007, After I finished my second pink Cadillac, it became crystal clear that I was to start this company and that I was to use my purpose, which I've known since I was 10, to use words to change the lives of other people. I was to use my purpose to change people's lives. And so I started out as a motivational speaker. About 2 years, no money, and bankruptcy. I realized that that wasn't going to cut it. I was going to have to do something else. And so I had always been really successful in my career. And so I became a consultant, and business consulting stuck. I was able to really help people experience growth and success, got a lot of people to the 6-figure mark back then. And we just have progressed and continue to tighten our frameworks and methodologies and the way that we serve and work with clients ever since. But it literally started with that knot in the pit of my stomach that said, there's got to be more to life than this. You were called to something greater. You need to be doing what you were called to. And
Yeah.
I was 28 at the time.
Wow. That is so inspiring. I love that you shared all that stuff with us. Before I jump into kind of when you switched over to business consulting, when you had that knot in your stomach, you went to work that day, you decided to resign. Like you said, you really didn't have a plan in mind. You just knew that it was not this, right? And I
Right.
think there's a lot of people out there that want to make that jump, want to make that decision, but they just can't get over that fear and really
Yeah.
not knowing if this is the right decision or not. So for all those people that are kind of out there that might be listening to this, are like, man, I want to do something else. I want to start my own business. Like, what would you say to them to be confident enough to just make that decision and just go for it and just say, you know what, I'm done 9 to 5. I'm going my own direction.
Yeah. So I don't want you to do what I did. Don't quit without a plan, right? I want you to create a plan. I want you to have 6 to 9 months worth of operating expenses and revenue so that while you're trying to get the business moving, you're not sleeping in your car. And I want you to check in with, like, for me, it's my spirit, whatever it is for you. I want you to check in with what's coming up, because I believe that every vision you have, God has already created the provision for it. And I believe, if I think about the scripture in Proverbs, delight yourself in the Lord, and he'll give you the desires of your heart. The desire that you have was put there by God. Desire in Latin means of the Father. So it's not your own original thought or construct. It was given to you by God. And so if you lean into that and in faith, right? You can have fear or you can have faith. Faith without works is dead. So not just having the faith, but taking the next step to take. I believe God gives you more while you're moving than he ever will if you stand still. So if you feel it, like if it keeps coming up for you, it's coming up for a reason. Like I think about the movie Sister Act 2. I'm dating myself, but Sister Act 2, Whoopi Goldberg, Lauryn Hill, and some other up and coming people at the time. There's this point where Whoopi goes to Lauryn Hill's character's home. Her name is Rita in the movie, and she talks about this book, Poets or Letters to a Young Poet. This woman, I can't remember the woman's name. And she said, when you wake up every single day, you want to be a singer, then you're supposed to be a singer. So I'm saying that to everybody out there, when you wake up every single day, you want to be an entrepreneur, you're supposed to be an entrepreneur. Do the work to ready yourself. I'm not advising anybody do what I did without a plan. That's how I ended up bankrupt. I want you to avoid bankruptcy. I want you to have a business that serves you as quickly in the process as possible. So create a transition plan. Don't quit your job until you know that you have a very clear business idea that solves a problem that people are willing to put money on. Once you have that and you've had people actually give you their money to solve their problem, then you have something that's viable. And if you're willing to give your business the same respect you used to give your job, then you'll be able to make something of your business.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say to anybody who would
Yeah.
be thinking about that right now.
Yeah, and that's so powerful. I think it's a big misconception too. I think a lot of people are thinking to themselves that, okay, I need to quit my job completely and jump into something brand new and start from ground level. When in reality, that's really not the case. You can start part-time, like you said. I like having that transition plan,
Absolutely.
have a goal in mind of really when you want to phase out of it and work towards that. Like it's not something you just stop suddenly and start something else like right away.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So
because I don't want you to be like me. I ate
yeah,
ramen noodles and peanut butter and jelly every other day. That was dinner for 18 months.
wow.
Because I did not have a plan. And once I blew through the money, like I didn't change my lifestyle or anything. And I had a 6-figure job that I quit.
Wow.
And when I was doing Mary Kay, I was doing really well. When I decided to stop doing Mary Kay and that money wasn't coming in, and I blew through my savings at when it was all done, ramen noodles and peanut butter and jelly. I don't want that to be you. So
Yeah.
create a plan, transition, start where you are, bloom where you are, plan it, use your job as a fundraising opportunity. And then when the time is right, transition.
Yeah. And one of the things I find really inspiring about your story is you keep talking about faith and how much you have to have faith to make that jump. And you were really showing how strong your faith was because you did make that jump. And like you said, it worked out, starting beginning with Mary Kay. But once you switched over to what else you were doing, your motivational speaking business, like you said, you went bankrupt, right? And you were eating peanut butter jellies and you were not living a great life for, I think you said 18
I
months.
wasn't.
So talk to me during that time frame. What was keeping you motivated, like between like in your brain, like how are you staying positive to this? Were you ever self-doubting, like I need to go back, or how do you
Oh,
separate the
absolutely. I'm
line?
human, right? If you cut
Yeah,
me, I'll bleed. So, yes, I experienced self doubt. I questioned whether or not I had actually heard God tell me to do this. Um, and at the same time, I knew two things. I knew number one, failure comes before success everywhere, including the dictionary. Right. I also knew that I saw failure as feedback. It didn't kill me to file bankruptcy. Was it an ideal situation? No, but I'm grateful, right? Within 3 years after I filed bankruptcy, I was a millionaire. So there were a lot of things that happened that changed that. Um, but I was willing to show up for myself. And just like when you fall down, like if you roller skate or you ride your bike and you fall, you dust yourself off and you get back up and get back on the bike. If you're wearing roller skates, you have to skate home. So you have to get back into action. I kept going. I knew that eventually it would break. Now, what I recognized I needed to do is I needed to get help in regards to early forms of coaching and mentorship. So my first coaches and mentors were the SBA and the Women's Business Center here in the state of Delaware because they were free to me as a taxpayer. I didn't have money to invest in some of the coaches and consultants that we're able to use today, but I went and I got help because what I realized very quickly is that Mary Kay was successful because it was a proven business model.
right.
Incredible One Enterprises wasn't successful because it wasn't a proven business model. And so I needed someone to help me to understand the things that I didn't know. I was an employee before. I went to work every single day and did what they told me to do and got a paycheck whether I did it or not. It doesn't work that way in entrepreneurship. When
Yeah,
you're an entrepreneur, if you don't sell, you don't eat. And so I needed someone to help me break down and understand how to create a business plan. I did not have one when I started. That's why I'm saying don't do what I did. So I went and I got someone to help me to create a business plan. And then I followed the steps on the business plan. I started taking the actions and it was chaotic at first. It didn't convert, but eventually it did. I think if you practice something long enough, you get good enough at it, your confidence heightens, and then you get what it is that you want from it. And so that's what it was with sales. Selling a Mary Kay lipstick was easy in comparison to trying to sell myself as a motivational speaker and then a business coach when I first started business coaching. But
right.
I knew that it was purposeful. I knew that I heard God. I knew that every test I went through was going to turn into an opportunity to help someone else. And so that motivated and kept me going. I think when you know your why, it allows what you do to have more impact and you can stay connected to it in those moments when it's not working. I
Yeah,
never was at the point where I was like, I'm giving up on this. This is not what I was supposed to do. I was always at the point where I'm like, I got to figure out how to do this. I got to figure this out.
yeah,
And so I became an amazing student of business to learn what it is that I didn't know so that I could get the results that I knew I should be enjoying because I'm brilliant. And so I'm like, I know that there's got to be a way to shift this. And so I just kept doing it. It's like, the creation of the light bulb. I mean, how many attempts
right.
were there before we got the light bulb? But he didn't stop. I mean, we'd be
Yeah,
in the dark right now. Well, maybe not right now because it's the daytime, but you know what
yeah.
I mean? So I knew that I had something that would be really special. So I just kept working at it until I figured it out.
Yep. You just got to keep going. What I love is that, like you said, you went bankrupt and like 3 years later, you became a millionaire. And that to
Mhm.
me is really the inspiring part about this. Another thing I want to touch on too is I think a lot of people when they have that 9 to 5 mindset, like you mentioned, it's really just working and getting paid every 2 weeks. And you really get used to that. When you switch over to entrepreneurship, it's a big time mindset shift because now you're doing work now to get paid 6 months later.
Correct.
You're not like it early as 6 months.
Sometimes 2 years
Yeah,
later. It
2 years. Like,
depends. It really
you're just
depends. Yeah.
planting all these little seeds right now, not seeing a lot of results, but down the road, a year down the road, 2 years down the road, that's when you're gonna start seeing it. But during that
Right.
transition time, it's tough because you look at it like, I don't see any real results right now, and your parents or your friends or family are like, what are you doing? So
Yep.
it's hard to kind of break that.
If you need instant gratification, don't become an entrepreneur like cold turkey. Definitely stair step your way into it by starting part-time,
Yeah,
because it takes time. It can take 90 days before any marketing strategy that you use gives you a glimpse of hope that it's going to work. And so
yeah,
if you don't have time and resource to, guide you and to keep you during that time, yeah, you'll get your feelings hurt in entrepreneurship.
yeah, yeah. So after that, you then jumped into business consulting, and obviously, you kind of hit the ground running, and that business has become successful, right? And that is your current business right now, which is Incredible One Enterprises.
Correct. Yeah.
So walk me through that. What was the big turning point for you when you're like, man, this is really going to work out? And what are some of the main things that you see wrong with the clients you're working with? Because obviously they're business entrepreneurs, they're CEOs, they want to get to that next level. So what are the kind of the main issues you're seeing with these people, and what do you kind of do to help them have these breakthroughs?
Yeah. So when things flipped for me in the business, it was because I figured out how to grow my own business and then how to apply it to other people's businesses. So I started to work with clients one on one initially to perfect the process that I was using and to make sure that it would work on a multitude of different types of businesses. And then once I knew that it would work on lots of different types of businesses, I could roll it out in a larger scale, right? And so by doing so, I was able to bring on more clients. Business is by and large a numbers game. And so it's about the volume of activity, right? The volume of marketing, the volume of sales conversations, the volume of people who hear your offer, and the volume of people who take it. And so by learning how to systematize the pieces of my business, it allowed me to be able to gain leverage by talking to multiple people at one time. When it comes to our clients, the biggest challenges that they face when they walk through the door and working with me, and today our clients, they're over the six-figure mark and they are feeling stagnant and stuck. They're trying to get to the next level. They're repeating the same revenue year after year after year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in a row. They're doing the same exact revenue. Like they've gotten to what I call their money set point, and they've gotten really good at creating that amount, but they can't begin to see how to create the next amount. So that's one challenge. Second challenge is the business acumen that is required to be the CEO of a company that generates 7 or 8 figures. They're great at what they do. They're amazing. They're the best. They are, they've got advanced degrees and certifications. They are amazing at what they do. And they have opportunities from a business standpoint. Like, what does it look like to run a business? Some of them have never heard of key performance indicators. So they're not planning for their business. They're spending all of their time working in it instead of actually having the space and capacity to work on it. So that's why they keep repeating the same milestone, because they're not able to strategically preside over the business and raise the vision and to be able to see what it'll take to get to the next level. And so those are some of the biggest things that we see. But, every client is different, what they need as they walk through the door, and the way that we support them through our methodology and framework, which is called the Move to Millions method, is different. And that's one of the things I really love about the work that we do. All of our clients are not the same, and we don't have a cookie cutter process. It allows me and the coaches and consultants on my team to stay really sharp, to know what's going on and what's working well in the industry for business,
Yeah.
which has been really, really exciting.
How many coaches and consultants do you guys currently have on your team?
So on our team right now, we have about 7.
7. Awesome. And so another thing you just mentioned that I think is super important for people that are growing their own business is to be able to work on your business and not in your business, right? Because if you're working in your business day after day, it's really just a job, but now you're working 24/7 instead of 9 to 5.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
So,
Yep. I say all the time that the amount of time you spend working in is going to prevent you from being able to work on. So the
Yeah.
ultimate goal, if we think about the parallel principle, is to get to the point where you're spending 80% of your time on the business and 20% or less in the business. And in order for that to happen, you got to build systems and you got to hire a team. And so we want to help them become leaders and to become CEOs so that they can actually get that strategic viewpoint over their business and allow it to grow. Because if you're in it every single day, it's going to be really challenging to grow. You're just creating a glorified job.
Yeah, exactly. And you just mentioned that it really boils down to having better systems and having a better team around you. And so I want to dive into the systems part for a second. What are some of the
Okay.
main areas that you've seen for business owners that where their systems are just lacking, where it can easily be upgraded or kind of automated in a much simpler way so that it's not taking so much time?
Yeah, so we believe that there are 7 systems to your business, and we see opportunities across the board in all of them. So you have your general operations, so that's how you're managing the day to day. You have your financial management, that's how you're managing all of the money. You have your legal management, that's how you're making sure that everything is in proper place and perspective for you to not experience fines or anything in your business. You have your marketing management, that's how you get found by the clients. You have your sales management. That's how you get paid from your clients, right? You have your client management. That's managing the relationship, the onboarding, the working with the clients and delivering the service and the offboarding. And then you have your talent management, and that's how you manage your team. So each of those 7 systems has a subset of several systems that you need to get up and running. And when I say systems, I mean 3 things. I mean standard operating procedures, the things you do over and over every single time that you want to write down so that you can become duplicatable. The only way to hire a team is if they know exactly what to do. If things are not documented in your company, then they're not going to know what to do, and they're going to have to keep pulling you back in to do the job that you hired them to do. I'm also talking about standard automation procedures. So the things that you can automate that takes the need for a person to be present for it to happen, making sure that you figure out those and get those things automated. And then I'm also talking about the software and the systems, the software systems that you use to do what it is that you do. For instance, like your customer relationship or CRM system, right? Your CRM should manage your marketing and sales functionality, and a great CRM will even give you the opportunity to do project management and manage your team. So thinking about the systems, the software that you can get that will allow you to make things easier so that you can ultimately make your success replicable and duplicatable so that you can multiply. Because scale, most people get it wrong. Scale is not about speed. Scale is about your ability to duplicate and multiply the results that you have gotten in a period of time for multiple people at the same time. And it's going to be impossible to do that if you don't have the right standard operating procedures, the right standard automation procedures, and the right software systems that you're using.
Yeah. I 100% agree. And so why do you think most people, I mean, it seems relatively simple when when you just think about like, oh, I want to get a better CRM. I want this to be controlled. Like, why do you think most business owners fail to kind of, take in that concept and really just apply it starting out? Like, why is that such an issue for them?
I I don't know if it's most, but I think that it's definitely some. I think the challenge often is figuring out which one is going to work best for you because there are a lot of them out there. And then depending upon where you are in your business, I think you need a CRM that you can grow into, right? So like for instance, I use Keep. I've been using Keep for 14 years. When I first started using Keep, it was called Infusionsoft. And when I got into that system, I was only a few years into my business and I didn't need it. But I knew that this company was going to make multiple millions of dollars a year. And I wanted a system that would support me at where I was going. I call this the difference between your vision point and your vantage point. I think a lot of people make decisions based on their vantage point where they are right now when they should be making decisions based on their vision point where they desire to be tomorrow. And so, because I made a decision based on my vision point, I got a better, more robust CRM that I could grow into as my business grew, that would give me the functionality that I would need to use in order to continue to scale and sustain my multiple 7-figure business. But I think a lot of people don't, they think for right now and not for the future. And so,
Yeah.
that's what's going to be one of the things people will need to change, whether they're looking at a CRM, whether they're looking at a sales pipeline software, whether they're looking at who they should hire. If you do anything from your vantage point, it's always skewed. You have to do everything from your vision point, looking out ahead to where you're going versus where you are. Because if you do things right, you're not going to be where you are very long. And you don't want to do anything based on where you are because you're going to move from there and go to the next step, right? Or go to the next level. So
Right.
that's why it's important that people operate from their vision point and not their vantage point.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. I think a lot of people too operate from their vantage point, just what you're talking about, because of financial reasons. They could say,
Yep.
"Oh, this is a crazy investment for right now," but if you look at your end goal, your vision point of where you want to go, then you got to realize like this is going to make the most sense. This is going to be most profitable for you at the end of the day, right? So you gotta
Absolutely.
take that risk now so it can fit into your plan later on. So yeah, it's
Right.
definitely an important aspect of it. And
Yep. And you
another,
lessen the severity of the risk if you do proper planning in
yeah,
advance.
yeah, so it comes back to just having that business plan, right? And following that model.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, one of the things you mentioned is that as a business owner, it's all about the funnel, right? How many people you're talking to, how many people can you get in front of your product, how many people can you close, right? And ultimately,
Right.
it's gonna become a numbers game. So I'm just curious for you, with your practice or whatever, with the coaching business that you're currently doing, how did you expand your funnel? Like, what are you kind of doing to get your name out there for advertising, for sales, to kind of
Mhm.
bring in the leads consistently and just grow over time?
Yeah, so there are three different traffic sources, right? So you can do paid traffic, which is going to be advertising, and there are multiple platforms to advertise on it. You're not restricted to Facebook. You can advertise in lots of places. You can do partnership traffic where you borrow other people's audiences. Examples of that would be getting booked to speak on other people's stages. And then you can do organic traffic that you actually build. So we actually use all three, right? We have some things that we do organically through social media and online efforts that aren't advertising. We do some advertising, and then I speak a lot. I get booked on stages, and so I'm typically on 2 to 4 stages a month, some virtual, some live, because we now have virtual events that happen
Awesome.
consistently that get me in front of new people. Podcasting is also, I'm borrowing your audience right now, right? Someone's going to be listening to this or watching this episode and be like, oh my gosh, this woman is amazing. I am. And they're going to be like, I need to know more about her. And they're going to reach out and learn about one of our free gifts and get into our ecosystem, which could then create an opportunity for us to do some work together in the future. So
Right.
there's so many different ways to get out in front of people. Last count, I counted there were about 51 different ways to market. You're not going to use all of them, but you are going to have to figure out which ones are going to work best for you based on the client that you serve. Because your marketing strategies need to be based on the client you want to attract. For instance, if I wanted to attract college professors and I'm only operating in corporate events, I'm probably not going to get my ideal clients. I'm going to have to find some events where college professors go, right?
Right.
So you have to realize it. Where are your clients? Not everybody's on Facebook. I know there are some people on there, but there are more billions of people in the world than there are on Facebook. So your client may not be on Facebook. Your
Right.
client might be on LinkedIn. Your client might not be online. So you're going to have to do that market research to figure out where they are. And then once you know where they are, you can identify which marketing streams are going to work the best for you to get their attention. And then once you figure those out, you want to show up consistently there. So the biggest mistake I see people make, and I know you didn't ask me this question, so I'm just going to volunteer it,
Oh, yeah.
is not marketing enough. I hear from clients all the time. Well, what did you do to get the word out? Well, I put it on Facebook. Well, again, I just said everybody's not on Facebook. And the way the Facebook algorithm is set up, most people don't even see your content. You're lucky if 1% of your people actually see it. And if that's the only tool you're using to market, no wonder your business isn't growing. So, sometimes that means we got to look at some of the other strategies that you should be leveraging in order to get it and make sure that they're right for your client. I love going to live events because I host my own live event. And so by
Yeah.
going to events where I'm speaking on stages and I'm meeting people who attend events, what do you think happens? People want to come to my event because they just heard me on stage. So you're going to have to modify your marketing strategy based on the client you desire to attract so that you can ultimately get in front of them, get found by them, and then ultimately get paid by them.
Yeah, that is so important. I think a lot of people, they really just have the hands over their eyes and they're shooting a random shot into the dark thinking
Absolutely.
maybe
Or
this
they
is gonna
took a
land,
whole
right?
lot of spaghetti and they're throwing it against the wall and they're like, whichever piece
Yeah.
sticks, that's the one I'm going with.
Yeah, exactly. When in reality, like you're talking about, like, do some market research, see where your customers are at, and really
Yep.
focus your work in that area, right? And then you're gonna see
Absolutely.
much better results when it comes to that.
Yep.
Now, before we run out of time, I got a couple more questions to ask you. So currently, in your current situation, if you're looking back, did you think you would ever be where you're at right now? Like, was this the vision that you had when you first walked out of the office back when you're in
It
your
was like I knew that this company would make seven figures. I knew it was a multi-million-dollar brand. I mean, if we could get to $1 billion if we decided, right?
Yeah.
I knew that. And it took me a little while to get here, but absolutely. And we're going to continue growing. Like we're not done yet. We still have only scratched the surface. I know this brand will be a 9-figure brand at minimum. And so we're working diligently in order to do the things that are going to be required for us to get there.
Yeah, I love that. And that's just having patience with God's plan, right? So
Yeah.
I love that you first stepped out and you're late, what, 27, I think you were, something like that.
28.
28. You were 28 years old, and now look what happened like in the past time, right? And you weren't successful out of the gate. Obviously, like you went bankrupt, but it's just having patience and sticking with that. So I think that's such a crucial point for people listening to it, that you can't rush God's plan. You don't know when it's really going to happen, but you got to follow your heart. If your heart's telling you to do this, do it, and then
Yep.
stick with it over time. And eventually,
Yep.
you're
Show
gonna
up consistently. Give God something to bless.
Yep,
Because
exactly.
he will bless if you give him something to bless. I say, and I think I actually said it earlier, God will give you more while you're moving than he will if you stand still. So even when you get stuck, take the next step you know to take. It's just like a GPS. The path emerges as you take the step. It's not going to tell you, it's not going to spit out every direction to get to your destination when you put in the address. You have to know where you're going, and then it gives you one step at a time. Well,
Yep.
sometimes that's the way God works. It just really depends on how diligent you are at showing up consistently for yourself. So that's why I say give yourself the same respect you gave your job. When you first started that job and you were super excited and you were there early and you left late, give your business that same level of respect, and that will accelerate the amount of time it takes you to get to the next level.
Yeah, exactly. Another question. So where you're at right now with your business, obviously you're an Inc. 5000 CEO. Like, that's honestly amazing. So what are your goals now going forward, in like the next couple of years, and what is kind of the long-term vision plan for what you're building up with your company?
Yeah. So for the last 2 years and some change, we've been really focused on getting clients to the 7-figure mark. And like we said, we've helped 45 get to the 7-figure mark. We've helped hundreds get to multiple six figures. And I want to deepen that. My immediate goal is to create 300 million-dollar CEOs that are also becoming millionaires, because being a million-dollar CEO does not make you a millionaire. So
Right.
they're building a wealth trajectory through their business. They're building businesses that serve them. So that's my immediate goal from an impact perspective. In order to create 300 million-dollar CEOs, we're going to work with thousands of entrepreneurs and CEOs that get to multiple six figures, or you know what I mean? So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the work. And I mean, there's another book in my future. I wrote a book last year called Move to Millions. You can see it behind me for those of you who watch the video, which is based on our proven framework to become $1 million CEO with grace and ease instead of hustle and grind. I have another book that I know that I will write in the future. Lots of travel, lots of speaking and thought leadership, really just deepening the impact that I was called to create on the earth.
Awesome. I love that. And before we hop off, is there anything else that you would like to say? And if people want to reach out to you, how can they go about finding you?
Yeah, no, this has been great. I want to just thank you for the time and how we've been able to kind of bob and weave out of a couple of different topics. And for anyone who wants to learn more, wants to stay connected, I have my own podcast. You can go to movetomillions.com, movetomillions.com. And from that page, everything you'd want to know about me is there. You can click a link that'll take you to all of the free gifts that we offer, that'll take you to our podcast, to take you to our book, to bring you to our live events. Anything you'd want to know, go to movetomillions.com.
Awesome. Definitely check out that website, guys. And there you have it. Dr. Darnyelle Harmon, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Will. I appreciate it.
Nowhere that we go is a one-way street. Nothing